Per usual, everything on this channel is for educational purposes only and is not intended as financial advice. It is Wednesday. Let's take a look at some alts. All in all, as much as we're up on a maybe weekly basis, we're still very much ranging across the board. This is kind of a day trader's dream, a very low time frame trader's dream, because we have these explosive quick moves where you do not have to be stuck in a position for an extended period of time. Definitely not my preferred trading environment. So I'm probably not going to sound as bullish as people want me to be, but that's just where we're at. I figured I'd start with the busiest chart imaginable and just leave it here for a second while I'm talking over it. So we've got US liquidity in the white as a metric, global liquidity in the green, stablecoin liquidity, effectively, I talked a lot about this yesterday, in the reddish hue, with total 2 in the blue. And all of these collectively are related to each other. Not that some alt has great tech. It's more or less, is there enough money to push your alt up, your favorite alt, your community? Page 75 alt, is there enough liquidity in the ecosystem? The good news is both stablecoin liquidity and global liquidity, the green and the red line there, are breaking out to new all-time highs. US liquidity in the white still very much ranging. That should change after rates come down. That may change if the QT path, the QT taper, ceases or decreases. And total 2 should act accordingly. Total 2 should break out with the rest of liquidity. The question is just timing here. It's not if it'll happen. It's just a matter of when, really, because if global liquidity continues, then everything should continue with it. You just really have to be patient. This is another reason why I like Q4. So everything collectively here into Q4 should move up and to the right. Now, if we just isolate total 2 and say, what does the TA look like on total 2? Yeah, again, as bullish as this stuff has been, thanks to pricing in a Republican White House, it is still below the daily cloud. It's still ranging. There's really not much to say in the near term here. It's back above the 200-day moving average. It's still below the cloud. Here's stablecoins that we care about, slowly grinding higher. We had a few stablecoin prints over the past week as well. But this rate of change in stablecoin expansion is not the same as Q4 2023, right? So that's the next thing to watch. What does the TA on total 2 look like relative to stablecoin liquidity in the ecosystem? What is the ETH ETF going to do to things? Do we just look at total 3 then? Because ETH should have some direct path for money to get into the ecosystem. This, by the way, is just the hot ball of money in the non-majors, right? The alts that nobody really cares about. How do they get bid up? They get bid up through stablecoin issuance. Sure, retail individuals can partake in all that stuff, but the big money, the stuff that really moves the market, is going to be the big liquidity injections via stablecoins. Looking at dominance on the weekly, it's still bullish. It hasn't done much of anything over the past couple months here. Bitcoin itself hasn't done much of anything. You know, this is all just, it is what it is, right? US liquidity up here, sideways. It's no coincidence that the global reserve currency's liquidity is flat. The dollar is flat. All of this stuff is related either directly or inverse. So once we get out of these ranges for liquidity, we get out of these ranges for DXY, we will likely get out of this range for dominance. We will get out of this range for Bitcoin price, and we will get out of this range for total 2. This is inverse dominance, effectively stripping out the stables. The cloud tells no lies. It is still telling you now is not the time. We may get a breakout here over the next 6 months into Q4, but it's just not the time yet. And if we look at the last halving, it took over 300 days, almost a year past halving, to get us on a real deal, quote unquote, alt season. Okay. So if it's not Q4, then it's probably Q2 2025. So do you either want to sit in alts until Q4 at best, or at worst Q2 2025? That is a long time to be heavily denominated in alts. That's why broadly it doesn't really make sense. This is kind of like the argument of individual stocks versus basket ETFs right now, or individual stocks versus the S&P. Individually, a lot of these coins will look better than others, and I would certainly focus on those, but that doesn't mean that the signals here are telling me, hey, now's a great time to be broadly in altcoins. It just doesn't make sense still. Hasn't made sense for years. So until this turns around, then we should see a broad lift, a broad tailwind on alts. Before we go any further here, let me mention today's video sponsor, Kraken Pro. Kraken Pro is a complete overhaul of the Kraken trading experience with a one-stop shop for advanced and professional traders. Kraken Pro enables efficient trading execution across multiple markets with a UI that allows for unique optimization tailored to your trading style. You can check out Kraken Pro with the link in the description of this video. Non-investment advice, crypto trading involves risk of loss. Cryptocurrency services are provided to U.S. and U.S. territory customers by Payward Ventures Inc., PBI, DBA, Kraken. So with all of the upward momentum we've had since Saturday, prices are back inside of the cloud, which is good. We are well on our way to something happening, but despite moving, 10% plus, we're back to where we were a couple weeks ago, right? It's just, there's not much going on here. We're still in the middle of the range. We went from bullish to neutral to bearish to neutral. So we're not there yet. Now, if we start to get bullish Kumo breakout, which I think we will, if we start to get bullish Kumo twist, which I think we will, then I like everything long. I like breaking 72. I like breaking all-time highs. I like moving higher. Something to definitely watch for, it was similar to what we had in April, May. Do we get this like right angled something here? We actually saw this on gold, a very high time frame gold signal. It's unusual. Usually when we get the head and shoulders, it's either flat or kind of down. In my experience, I don't really remember too many head and shoulders that are kind of angled higher like that, but that could be what we are setting ourselves up for here, where we maybe break down to 60, 62, no promises, but that'd be something to watch for. Someplace to start nibbling maybe, and then on the breakout, unsurprisingly, the neckline of this potential head and shoulders lines up with a Kumo breakout. So it's just slowly checking boxes, getting more and more bullish. Germany is officially done as of today. They've sent out an announcement on that. The GOX coins, I think, are 65% distributed. So there's really no rush, but we're getting closer. We're definitely getting closer. We've gone from this M double top possibility to this right angled wedge thing, which if you remember Chainlink before Q4 2023, it had a very similar pattern and it just kept going back to the horizontal, back to the horizontal. It took months and months and months and months for Link to break out. But if you remember when it did, it was huge. It was a massive breakout. So based on the depth of the pattern, we measure to 100K pretty easily if we can get back to 72, and then if we can break the highs. So between 72 and 53, just like Link, it went all over the place, and we'll look at that. But that's the most immediate example that I can remember. But this is still on the table. A couple of weeks ago, I think I mentioned this possibility. I didn't think we'd actually break out as quickly as we did, but it's good to see some technical evidence for strength outside of the catalyst that we had on Saturday. I don't need a pullback. I don't want a pullback. It just makes sense. We're up very quickly here. Legacy pulling back today. And all in all, we look good. We look very good. Lastly, for BTC, we are back inside of the safety of this trend channel, still below the 20-week moving average. That's another thing to watch other than the cloud, back above the 200-day moving average. So we look good, but not great. We look better than we did Friday last week. We don't look as good as we did in May when we were sitting at highs. But at this point, hopefully we've burned off more coins, more distribution, more sellers. The ETFs are ramping up in the US as well as in Asia. So that's really good as far as a signal for money coming into the ecosystem. You can measure this whole thing. We'll go back to this one kind of as a Wyckoff accumulation, probably with a spring here. So as wishy-washy as all the technical evidence is, I think Bitcoin is well on its way to looking better into Q4. I just think it's going to take time. It's going to take a lot of time because August, September are not the months for Bitcoin seasonally. And knowing that, alts probably don't do amazingly in that time period. As you probably have noticed, certain alts doing very well on certain days and others just doing nothing, just broadly here, very much a low time frame trader's mentality. Looking at the volume on Kraken today, most of the volume is in Tether, and that suggests a risk-off stance in the market, risk-off sentiment. Usually when we see most of the volume on the day in Tether versus, a couple days ago, it was definitely Bitcoin was the top of the pile here. Sol, ETH. I still don't know who's trading Ripple. We'll take a look at the chart. Meme coins, some AI stuff. We'll take a look at all this stuff. But in general, I don't think there's really too many signals here. It's just bullish recovery. Looking at Sol first, there was this possibility of a descending triangle. We had this inverted head and shoulders at the bottom that didn't play out. We had this W double bottom that looks to be playing out. We're back above the cloud. So this looks pretty good. It looks pretty good. It doesn't look horrible. And you can always just say, it looks good enough for me, and start playing around in the sandbox, right? You just start adding or start accumulating, or you have been accumulating, whatever. But I don't think this is like a high confidence trade setup here just yet for me. But it looks pretty good. Of all of the alts, this is probably the strongest looking alt outside of ETH. And that makes sense. It's in the top 3. ETH, kind of the same thing. It's just in the cloud. It's in the middle of the range. It's got ETFs coming next week, 23rd. So if you're bullish that, go for it. We'll take a look at ETH BTC here, which is just more nothing. Sideways chop. It's still within the inverted head and shoulders fractal diamond bottom. I mean, this could be a bunch of stuff. None of it is bearish continuation, but none of it is screaming immediate bullish continuation here. All the people thinking that, oh, the ETH ETFs are going to be immediately bullish, I don't quite think that's the case. If we go to Sol BTC, there was a decent case of a head and shoulders here, which I think is probably pretty obvious to most people. We are still within the realm of possibility there. Ideally, what you want to see is a new high above the previous shoulder to be sure that this is negated. But for now, this is still on the table. Just another way of saying nothing is clear here. There really isn't a straight opinion on anything. And I know a lot of people recently talking about Ripple because it's up, but zoom out to last month, the month before, the quarter before, the year before, the decade before. This thing has gone nowhere for a very long time. So I don't know who's trading this or why. The high time frame cloud is still bearish, much like the high time frame Bitcoin chart. You know, maybe there's a like wedgie thing here, but I don't know. To me, there's no strong signal or setup, and it would be great to see this above the weekly cloud if you're bullish Ripple, but I don't really see a great trade setup for me here on the high time frames. We can look at against Bitcoin as well. And it was at the bottom of the range. It's oversold, but that's about as far as I could go. Is this a strong candidate for bullish continuation? No, this has been nothing but bearish for years, right? So if you want to just trade the range, trade the bounce, I guess that's an argument, but again, just not for me. I'd rather trade anything else. Pepe, meme coin, low time frame, had a little bit of a bounce. It looks okay. Anything ETH beta should do well if ETH does well. Just a bunch of mixed signals here. Bearish TK cross, bullish cloud, back in the cloud. I don't really see a pattern necessarily, a chart pattern here. Anything we can really wrap our hands around and say, aha, that's a thing. Is there maybe a channel of some sort? Maybe that's as far as you can take it. And we can expect some squiggle up to the top of the channel over time. But I don't see a strong trade setup on that one. Doge also in recovery mode. It had this massive head and shoulders that it's basically back to the neckline. It broke down, broke up. Okay, again, is there a trade here? No, this is why DCAers are just smiling, because they continue to win. They continue to be price agnostic and plan for Q4. I don't see a great trade here. I think the best you could maybe do is, no, there's not even anything on the 4 hour. I just don't see anything worth touching here, but into probably August, September, honestly, you're going to see something through the cloud. Okay, that's a trade. Then some sort of breakout. Okay, that's a trade. But here, there's just nothing for me. Render previously had, like a lot of the AI stuff, this inverted head and shoulders that looked really good, held above the cloud for a long time, and then just didn't do anything, you know? So what are you going to do? So we'll get rid of that for now. But much like everything else, we're scraping off the bottom. Is that a thing to celebrate? I don't think so. We're back at the M double top possibility. I mean, there's just, what are you going to do here, right? It's trend wise, it is not on your side. You want two things. You want a breakout or you want bullish continuation? This is neither of those. At least for me, that's all I care about. You can even see it back here. We don't have that yet. We're not there. So yeah, it's up, but not really for me. Whiff, maybe low time frame. Adam and Eve, Adam, Eve, something, you know, there's a better setup here because there's a pretty clean horizontal you can watch. There's a chart pattern that I think is pretty obvious. Low time frames, the cloud is on your side. Maybe this moves off of some Sol ETF announcement or something. Maybe the only coin so far that has a decent setup outside of Sol. Makes sense. Sol looks pretty good. INJ also had a great setup that broke out and then just failed. It had a really good, I took this trade, got stopped out, but I took this trade. Broke into the cloud above the horizontal resistance and then just sold off. You know, what are you going to do? It is what it is. So here, I don't really see anything. Is there a channel? Is there what is this, right? There's nothing here. Your best trades will always be anything freshly out of the cloud or anything with a TK recross above the cloud. So I really don't see a trade on INJ there. SUI, same thing. You know, I guess you could say on this stuff, there's a channel that we can watch. And once we're above that channel, likely into the cloud, we'll have a better understanding of bullish reversal. But this is what you want right here. That's later on. That's September. That's October. That's Q4 if we get there. So I really don't see any chart pattern or trend trade there at all. Near also had like render, had a really, really great setup up here, broke out a little bit and then just completely rolled over. So it's starting to get back above the cloud here. Just not quite ready. Not quite ready. The examples are right here on the chart. Again, that's all I want. All I want is a bullish Kumo breakout, bullish TK cross, bullish Kumo twist. Not there yet. Just not there yet. Getting close, but not there yet. This, by the way, also has a similar pattern to Bitcoin. You know, it's not exactly the same, but close enough. Where would this measure? Let's take the fib tool, depth of the fib tool, 14 to 19 if we break out. But that likely doesn't happen anytime soon. So I just think it's a sit tight and wait for most of these. FET, there is a, much like Whiff, there's an Adam and Eve here. Okay, that's a chart. But let's say this doesn't break out. What is the next thing to watch for? A full inverted head and shoulders. We're not quite there yet, right? This could take another month. This could take August to break out into the cloud, and then it makes sense. But right, like we're waiting for this, we're waiting for this. Those are the extremely high hit rate trades where just wait for your pitch, which is not the time, at least for me. I don't see a pitch here that I want to swing at. It just doesn't make sense. Lido, all over the place. Just not for me in general. We go to, let's go to lines here. Not really for me, but if you're bullish ETH and you want some sort of beta play, it had this ascending triangle, broke up, broke down. Okay, you know, what is here that's tradable? I don't really see anything here. What has been here historically that's tradable? Also nothing, just ranging for a long time. We can go to Maker real quick. That was one that did really well in a bearish period and then cooled off, starting to look okay. But again, none of this is like slam dunk. Yes, I'm going to take the trade. It's not in a spot that makes sense to me here on the daily cloud. SHIB, another meme coin, same thing. It's just, it's not ready yet. Got to put this bun back in the oven. I know it's boring. I know it's, everybody wants to be bullish all the time, always. But if we're being honest about this and trying to make money, the best time to try to make money is when we think momentum is on our side. And if that's not obvious, then what's the point? You know, ADA, nice recovery, maybe a edge-to-edge attempt here, but I don't quite think the head and shoulders thing is quite done yet. So again, like, what do we want? It's obvious. It's always there. It's always on the chart. We're just not there yet. Not there yet on a lot of these trades from a high probability setup perspective. Tau, this thing's all over the place. Not for me. LTC, also really not for me. Historically, it's just done a bunch of nothing, just like Ripple. It actually trades tightly correlated to Ripple for whatever reason. And if this thing is going to get bullish, it was above the cloud on the weekly. This was 2017. That was alt season. You know, you want an alt season? That's what it looks like right there. We had another mini alt season right here in 2021 for stuff like this. When is the next alt season on this chart? Well, let me tell you, dear listener, I think that's going to be in Q4, right? In between Q2 and Q4, that is when we may see a move higher. Is it going to be like 2017? Is it going to be like 2021? I don't know. But here, positioning doesn't make sense yet. It's still too early. We are in the same type of chop we were in 2016 going into 2017. So it's just not the time yet. It's just not the time yet. Look at a few more and call it a day. But broadly here, there's not really much to do, which is why Total 2 gives you a pretty good idea, right? You know, do we have momentum or not? Are we going up or down? Are we ranging? If we're ranging, is it bullish or bearish? What does the consolidation look like? This is just nothing. It's just hot garbage so far, right? There's nothing here. There's nothing here. Dot, it's at the bottom of the historic range. I got nothing. I got nothing on a reasonable time frame that makes sense to trade. AVAX looks very similar. All of these probably move together when they start to move, which is another sign to look for leaders and laggards, but all of these look about the same. This is what you want. We probably see it in Q4, not now. Nothing says you can't start accumulating this stuff. If you like it, if you're bullish, it's not for me, but I can understand people who like trading with the assumption of eventual bullishness. So this is Link. If we go back to 2022 and 2023, this is where we saw this type of pattern where it was just agonizing for a long, long time. So we are in the BTC side of things, probably somewhere over here, I would imagine. So even after the full bounce, you know, we just had this, okay? So we're somewhere over here. Even after the full bounce, this would be the equivalent of like retesting 72 for the 65th time. And then we made another inverted head and shoulders, and then we broke out. So we're either going to need a catalyst to get us beyond 72 in the near term, or we just keep ranging, right? So I just don't think there's anything specifically that's screaming at me, hey, there's a great trade here. Even Link on the daily, what is there here? There's nothing. There's nothing. It is ranging. Maybe we get this, right? But not now. Not now. So I want to come and I want to say, man, everything's going to 1000x. Buy it all right now. NFA, that just isn't the case. There just really isn't anything to do here other than if dollar cost averaging your favorite coins slowly every week. I haven't seen a good argument for anything at all across the board, no matter how much it's up. It just doesn't really change much of anything in the near term. You're hoping for a trend that's bullish. You're hoping for a tradable pattern. Here's Zcash, everyone's favorite punching bag. Something to watch, I guess. You know, like I don't have a good setup on just about anything. Real exciting video. I know that's all I got for this one. Like, dislike, comment, share, subscribe, and happy trading.